G'day and welcome back to part 2 of my Loewe Opta Meteor radio restoration. Last week we looked at the radio to assess its condition and some of its features. I very quickly found out the power transformer had shorted out inside, but I was able to rewind it, install it, and the radio started working. It didn't need a lot of work. I changed the main filter capacitor and some electrolytics and paper capacitors. When I left last week I said I was going to paint this and put the dial glass back on. I did paint it, but I haven't put the glass back on. I'll just wait till I do the intermediate frequency alignment, and then I'll put the glass on. I'll do the radio frequency alignment and line up the pointers. To start with the alignment, here's the 3 IF transformers. The back ones are the FM, the forward ones there are the AM, and there's also adjustments underneath the chassis. These are full of wax, and I've made up a little tool, or it's not a tool, it's a little drill. I've flattened off the end there, and I should be able to fit it in there and hopefully sort of drill out the wax. Not sure if it's going to work. Now I've hit a bit of a lump there and I don't want to push too hard. This drill might be too big. Maybe the little cylinder there gets a bit smaller as it goes down. I'll get a smaller drill and I'll try again. This is the drill I was using and this is a bit smaller, so we'll try that. I think there was a little, there's a little ridge in there. So easy to ruin these. I don't want to do that. I think I've hit it. I can feel that sort of rough grain. Look how far down that is. It's that far down. Well, there it is, and that drill's cleaned that up nicely, so that'll be good. And I've got a tool to put in there. We'll see if that's going to grip it or not. Yep, there it is. Yeah, nice. Okay, I'll just quickly try another one. I can't believe how far down that one was. But that's working well. That's just removing the wax as I go. And you can feel when you hit the slug, so you can stop pretty easily. It's down that far. Crazy. All right. And I'll just clean it out properly with a metal screwdriver there. Try and find the slug and clear it out. And now the little tool should fit in there. That's picked the slug up fine. No worries. Alright, good. For the AM alignment, this is all I have. There's no written information on how to do it. Here's the AM information we need. ZF is IF, of course. L means coil. The IF frequency is 473. And we adjust 9 to 14. So coil's 9 to 14. So there's 9 there, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is the top of the chassis. This is the corresponding coil underneath. So we need to be able to get to both sides of the chassis. Now this one here is a IF blocking coil, I would assume. That's 31, that's over here. So this is easy enough. When we get to the FM, I'm going to struggle. To put a signal in, I've put a little wire here on pin 2 of the ECH81. This is the mixer or converter valve. I'll input the signal from the generator into that. I've managed to get an AVO meter, which I've been looking for a while. This lets me go down to 2.5 volts AC, so this will be very good for doing this sort of thing. I've set everything up, the radio's going, I've got the meter on, and I've got the Swartz running here. It's on 473 kilohertz, which is the IF frequency. 30% modulation, 630 microvolts. I'll adjust that up and down to keep the needle in around about the center of the meter. The meter is set to 2.5 on the scale and it's about the center there. So I'm going to start adjusting. I have a little tool that should fit in here. Alright, so I'll just look at the meter there and I'll peak it. Oh, getting a lot there, hang on. So I'll pull back on the input till we get that around the center of the scale again and take it up. Goodness me. Wow. Alright, there's the peak. So here's its corresponding coil on the bottom. Where are we? There. Alright, I'll adjust it and a little bit out of that one. Seems to be about it. I'll try this one. A little bit out that one. That's about it there, I think. Okay. Alright, I'll do the one on the opposite side. That looks about it there. Yeah. This isn't behaving the way I hoped. I've put the sound back on. I didn't video it because it's too loud, but I've put the sound back on and confirmed what I'd set there was right. So I've turned the sound off again. We'll continue. Here's the top on the third transformer. You're going to laugh when you hear this. You'll notice I've got the IF transformer in my hand. The last bit of video I was sitting there twiddling this and thinking I was adjusting it, and I wasn't. It had sheared off the end of my little tool here. The end of the tool was stuck in the slug. I tried to get it out, I couldn't do it. I ended up taking the whole thing out, and then I was able to get a small drill in there and just remove a bit of plastic end there. But that slug is stuck tight, and the one down this end is also stuck tight. So I can't adjust those. The other ones all needed adjusting, so I think I need to, have some sort of adjustment. Now this is an inductor. There's a capacitor there that forms a tank circuit, so we can either adjust the inductor or the capacitor. The capacitors there are 200 picofarad. I've got a 150 picofarad here. If I replace that with 150 picofarad and add this adjustable capacitor to it, this one goes from about 10 to 100 picofarad. If I put that in parallel with it, that should give me 150 to 250 range, and I might be able to get it to align with that. The FM side is okay. I can move the slugs in there quite freely. So I'll start by taking these capacitors out and putting some 150s in there. There's the two caps installed, and these little capacitors here I will solder onto here. There's one there and one there. So I'll put all this back together and we'll see if it's going to work. There's the two capacitors there. I can adjust those easily. I have the Swartz running again. I'll put the modulation on. We'll go to 400, and I'll turn the speaker on. Oh, there it is. I've got not much on this meter at the moment, but I'll just see if should get louder because I haven't adjusted it, of course. Hopefully it'll come up. Oh, it's getting louder. I'll turn the speaker off so we don't have to listen to it. And there it goes. I expected that. What about this one? No? It's coming up? Not much? Oh, it wasn't far off then. So there's the peak. Wow, I'm over the moon. But that's worked really well. I wasn't 100% sure it would. Well, it should have. Theoretically, it should have worked, so it has. Now, that is so much easier to do. I'd almost think about doing the rest of them. No, I'm not. But, yeah, that's worked well. I'm really happy now. What I'll do is turn the video off. I'll go back and redo them all again, make sure they're still okay, and we'll go on to the next step. But that's been fantastic. I'm really, really happy that got around that problem. The last step in the AM-IF alignment is this one here. It's, once again, a coil or an inductor, I should say. And it's got to be adjusted to minimum. Now, this blocks out any spurious IF transmissions that might be in the area. So if there's a signal around that's coming in at 473, this will block it from getting in through the antenna system. So I'm going to put the IF frequency of 473 into the antenna and then adjust this to block that signal getting through. I've got everything set up. I've plugged the generator into the antenna input into the radio. There's number 31. I've already got an adjusted tool in there. And I'll put the speaker on. I've upped the signal strength on the Swartz. We've got 3, millivolts now. Now all you can hear is hash at the moment. Now what's going to happen on this meter here is that's going to go up and down. So we need it to be, well, 0 where it is, I guess. So I'll start adjusting it, and we can hear the tone there. We don't want to hear the tone. That's gone completely. So we're blocking it. If I keep going, it'll come up. Right. And that's it, gone completely. So that's adjusted. So I've finished setting up the AM-IF. I'm going to do the FM-IF, and this is going to give me issues. There are no instructions for doing it. All it does is give you these numbers here, 1 to 8 I think, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's all you get. Let's have a look at the FM detector. I need to determine what sort of detector it is. The signal's coming in here. This is the FM primary, and this is the secondary and the FM transformer. This is the AM primary and secondary here. This secondary coil is center tapped. One end of it is attached to the anode of this diode in this valve here. The other end is attached to the cathode. That means that those two diodes are pointing in different directions. That makes this a ratio detector. The signal from this ratio detector comes out the center tap and comes off here. This goes down to the go to the preamp and the volume control ultimately, and out to the output valve. So that's where the signal comes out. There's another one coming out here. Here it is here, and that's that 4 microfarad capacitor that I replaced, and that'll go off to the Magic Eye and to the AGC. But anyway, that's not what I'm worried about now. I've got to try and align this thing. Just to show you what I mean, here's a ratio detector circuit. It's a sort of typical one. Center tap, signal coming out, 2 capacitors there, and there's the 2 diodes, and as I said, one's facing one way and one's facing the other way. So if you had a Foster-Seeley type, which preceded these ones, you won't see them, and very old radios would have those. These 2 diodes would face the same way. Also, you wouldn't have this limiting capacitor on the back here. So, but that's the quick way to tell it's a ratio detector. So not having a lot of information on this, I'm going to cheat. I looked on the internet for someone who had done one of these, and I found something by Manuel Caldera. He had a different model low radio, but it was the same ratio detector circuit. So I thought I'd take the easy way. I'll just do what he did. He had instructions on his radio schematic on how to actually achieve the alignment. So here's Manuel going through the steps, and I'm just going to steal his bit of paper.
So that's the last...
Oh, come on.
And here it is. So what it's saying is inject a signal into grid 1 of the 2 valves in the IF chain. I'm going to do exactly what Manuel did and what I would have done, and tape it to the side of the EF85 FM valve. That'll induce the signal, and all it does is say adjust all the little coils or inductors to maximum. So there's no mention of limiters or adjusting out the IF signal from the AM, nothing like that. It just says put them all at maximum. So I'll do what he did, and thanks Manuel. It says to measure it with the voltmeter at the loudspeaker. I've converted this to English. And then it says when one circuit of the filter is balanced, the other one must be attenuated by a capacitor and a resistor. As Manuel found, it really makes very little difference. So I won't bother with that part. So I'll do exactly what he did. I'll just maximize all these and it should be balanced. I should add that the model that Manuel was doing is a 5717W. I've got the radio running. The Swartz is running. It's on 15 kilohertz, 10.7, as per the instructions that Manuel had. The input, I decided to put it in the grid of the mixer valve. I'll do the antenna a bit later. I've set up the oscilloscope here. I've sort of got everything working with voltages and whatever. So let's start by adjusting some of these. And I'll just see how far they're out. That one is not far out at all. I'll just work on the underside to get the initial setup. Oh, that's not far out either. Now I would have moved these a bit when I took the wax out, make sure they were going to turn. There's one. Didn't get much out of that either. Another go at the top ones. A little bit there. This one. Almost nothing there. And the end one. Right, so I'll just quickly run through them all again. I want to get these as close as I possibly can. gaining a lot now on the second run. I'll run through these again off camera and make sure it's absolutely spot on, but it's looking pretty good so far. I ran through all those again and it came up very, very well. I'm going to move the input from the generator onto the valve here. I've just slipped a bit of wire in between the glass and the shield, and the signal should go in there. There's some interference affecting the radio and it's coming up on the oscilloscope. So I'll go and use the voltmeter that they suggested I use in the first place. So I'll turn this off and go to the voltmeter. Here's the adjustment. So if I move that, oh gosh, it's moving a smallest amount. I'll put it back about where it was. I think that was pretty close. It's only a very small movement. Oh, this one's touchy. So I'll peak this one. Oh. Right, got a bit out of that one. That's as much as I need to do as far as the FM or IF alignment, and of course the ratio detector has also apparently been aligned as well. To check that the ratio detector is aligned, I'll turn the speaker on, and we've got FM modulation going in. If I go to AM, it should reject it. And I'd say it has. And if we look at the meter, it's actually gone to 0. I hadn't expected that. So if I turn this a little bit, I reckon that was pretty good. So I will 0 it. There we go. So I believe that was actually aligned pretty well. I'll take everything off, put an antenna on it, I'll see what it sounds like. Alright, put an antenna on, I'll just put some power on.
At Craftsman Caravans, it means getting you your new caravan sooner. Yep, we're removing the long wait to get you your van quicker than that. We've just secured a whole bunch.
That sounds alright. I'll put on some music. I can't play it, of course. I've got some music here. I'll turn it up and see what it sounds like.
To your loving arms and say, come.
That still sounds distorted. The bass is distorted. Yeah, I'm not sure. Doesn't sound right. Now I've gone up and down the dial and picked up some music, and the voices sound alright, but music, it has a distortion there. Yeah, it sounds like they're gargling almost. So it's no better than before I did that alignment. I think I'll connect it to a sweep generator and an oscilloscope, just see what it looks like. I've set everything up. I've got a new sweep generator here. This was also sent over by Vern. He's the radio mechanic on the radio mechanic channel in the USA, and he sent this one over. He had sent me an earlier model and I had struggled with it, and not because of the machine itself, just me. So he sent me this one, and this is a later model of the same, I think the same manufacturer, Precision, and this one lays the marker on top of the return from the radio. The other one put the marker on top of the signal on the radio, so it kind of got it a bit distorted. So this one adds it later, and it's a much clearer picture. You can just see it wiggling down the bottom there. Maybe I'm a bit far away with the camera. That little marker there is generated by this little oscillator here, and it's set to 10.7. So that's a 10.7. I've connected all this into the radio. That's going into the grid of the mixer or the converter. This is coming out of the center tap of the ratio detector, so it's between the first two little capacitors. So if I turn this up, you should have a signal, and there it is. Now my wife's got every washing type machine running, and it's playing havoc with it. I'll show you the marker. There it is there. I'll try and center it, turn it down again. In fact, I'll turn it off, and that's what's come out of the radio after I've used the oscilloscope. So it's pretty good. It's moving around, as I said. The wife's washing machine is mucking it up. Look at it go. But I'm not going to touch any of that. I reckon that's pretty good. This curve here isn't too bad, and if I use the sweep generator and the oscilloscope, I could flatten that off a bit more. And this is just checking the IF cans. I haven't done the discriminator. But I want to use the method Loewe recommends. So I'll put this away for now, but the next FM radio I'm going to use this. And if you want to learn some stuff using basic language from Vern, go and check out his channel. There's a link in the description below. Yeah, I just tried it again. It's definitely distorted. It was distorted when I even started this thing, and having played with all those adjustments, which I really didn't move all that much, it's still the same. So there's something wrong in the, in the chain there somewhere. The AM sounds fine, so it's nothing to do with any of the AM, that they follow the same path sort of thing. They still go through the same transformers and all. So I reckon I'll start by just replace a couple of valves. The mixer and the IF amp tube would probably be a good start, and possibly the FM decoder, diode tube at the end there. I do have one of these IF amps on the bench here somewhere. I'll put a new one of those in. This is the original EF85 that came with the radio, so I'll put that back. The power on again. This is the local station. Whoa. That's the local station. I'll try and listen to that one. Well, that sounds alright. So I wonder if it is that valve. I've put the original speaker back in. My shop speaker is very bassy, so it always sounds a bit off. I'll try it with this speaker, and hopefully it'll come out a much clearer sound. I'll turn it up. It's on a station. Now I think that sounds alright. I'll have to play with it. I'll leave it running for a couple of hours, make sure everything sounds alright. They'll get off the jazz a bit later on, and we'll be able to listen to something that seems to highlight the problem.
It's Bobby Lyle and friends taking us all the way to Timbuktu out in the middle of the Sahara Desert in Mali. Good rhythms like that comes from his album.
Yeah, so that's much better than my shop speaker. So I'll leave this running. I'll come back later on, and I'm pretty sure that sounds alright. Now, funny thing, I've taken the cover off this module. I ran this for an hour last night and it sounds fine, but the FM would drift as it heated up. So I noticed this cover was getting really warm here next to the valve, and this capacitor here was pretty much up against the top of the shield there and getting heated from the valve here. When it was running, I would let it run drift and then hit that with a little bit of cold air, and it would reset back to the station. It would center again on the station. So I think this is the wrong type of capacitor I have here. So I've unsoldered one end of it, and I'm going to replace it with a mica capacitor. This will be much more temperature stable. So I'll put this in, I'll come back, and we'll see if it's any more stable. I've changed that little capacitor there, and I've had the radio running for nearly an hour and a half. It has not moved since I've put that in. Before, I was just blowing cold air on that capacitor, and it would just go way out of tune. I'm going to actually put some cold spray on it. Not moving, not moving. Maybe that's fixed it. I hope so. It was a bit of a guess on my part. I've just turned that music down, but I reckon I might have got that right. I wish now that I'd filmed the old capacitor when that was in there and hitting it with the cold air, and it just went way off tune. So I'm really happy with that. I'll put the cover back on, let it all heat soak, and see if it's still stable. If it is, that's a great fix. I've refitted the fascia plate, and I'm going to do the RF alignment now. But just before I do, the capacitor that I replaced in the FM tuner yesterday has fixed the drift by about 90%. It still drifts a little bit and needs to be retuned after about 10 minutes, but it's only just out and it's much better than it was. They later went to permeability tuning, and that is much more stable. But anyway, it's working exactly how you would expect this sort of tuner to work. So here's our chart again, and this is the FM, and it's saying there we need to set all these on the dial, and there's the corresponding adjustment to get that number right. The numbers correspond to down here, I think 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay. The first number they've got there is 87.9, and then 87.5, and you do 17 and 18, so the two bottom ones. Okay, easy. First thing to do is align the FM pointer in this little square here. At least I'm assuming that's what you do. Wind the pointer up. It says to put it on 87.9. I think that's about it there. There's no mark for it. They normally put a little cut divot or something to indicate that that's where you put it. It's nothing there. So I'm going to guess that's about 87.9. Looks pretty close. I've pre-programmed it into the Swartz here, so 87.9. I'll put the speaker on. Nothing. Now, because I'm really smart, I didn't put the numbers on here. I've actually put what they are. So that says oscillator trimmer and oscillator padder. So I don't have to try and think which is which. So the padder is on the lower frequencies, the trimmer is on the top. So if I was to adjust this, it should bring it in. Turn the speaker off, it's still a bit loud. So I'll put this on what I think is 87.9 and just trim it up to maximum on the needle there, on the meter. That'll do. So now I need to move up to 97.5. So 97.5, at least that's got a mark on it. There we go. The Swartz is 06, yeah, 97.5. The meter's gone off the scale, so I'll bring it back a bit. Okay, I'll just tune around a bit. I'd say that's 97.5. Oh, look, it's so close. Yeah, okay. So I'll check it at 93 and I'll see if it's still aligned at the 93 position. So I wind it down to 93, speaker's on again. I'll turn the speaker off. Yeah, so it's just a little bit out. So I can fix that by adjusting these two and just playing off against each other to try and move that 93 down a bit closer to the low frequency end. I'll put the Swartz back to 87.9. Swing the dial down to 87.9. Oh, speaker off. So what I need to do is get this to peak a bit further down, so maybe down here somewhere. Then I'll go up the other end and compensate at the other end, and hopefully that'll move the 93 back closer to its center point. So I'll just move that along till we peak the meter there, somewhere near it. I'll change this to 97.5. I'll just wind up to 97.5. I'll just use the meter to peak it. Oh, that's right on. I expected that to move down a little bit. I'll go back to 87.9. So 87 there somewhere. So maybe I didn't adjust that correctly. I'll take that back a little. Yeah, I moved it a bit. I'll go back to 93, see what it's done there. So I'll go up to 93. And that's now pretty much, well, it's pretty good actually. It's perfect, almost perfect. No, it's perfect. So I think I'll try and trick it a bit. I'll go up to 97.5. Put it on there. I'll just go a tiny bit past and I'll try and trick it. And I'll put this on 97.5. And it only needs to move a fraction. There it is. That's it. You can barely even touch it. So I'll take it down to 87.9 and I'll trim it up and see what happens. About there. I'll put this on 87.9. There it is. And I'll just peak it. That's about it. Alright. I'll check it all again. There's 93. I'll just stop short. I'll change this to 93. We'll see how we go. Wow, that's pretty good. That's 93. I'll go up and check the 97.5. I'll change this to 97.5. So I wind it up to 97.5. There's right in the middle. And that's excellent. Perfect. Okay. I've got a wide shot going here, so the two ends are a bit blurred, but that's 97.5 and that's okay. We just checked that. So I'll put it on 93. wind it back to 93. Let's pull that back a little. So peak that. There you go. And that's close enough to 93. In fact, it's perfect. So I'll change that to 87.9. Come down here, just past 88. Where is it? There it is. There it is. And that is perfect. So that's something I found out. You can play these two against each other and move that center position along a little bit if it's out. So that's good. I'm very happy with that. Now I need to align the antenna. I've labelled these two as well. This is antenna padder and that's antenna trimmer. So this is a trimming capacitor and this is a coil. Right, I still have it selected to 87.9 on the dial and it's 87.9 on the Swartz. Right, so all I need to do is peak this and we'll see if we get a bit more out. All we're doing is lining up, it's gone off scope, oh no, there we go. All we're doing is lining up the tuner capacitor with the oscillator capacitor and that looks perfect. Right, I'll go up to 97.5. There we go, right there. I'll put this on 97.5. Oops, so looking good there. Yeah, that's perfect. So all I need is maximum deflection on the voltmeter and that'll be all it needs. So I moved it a little bit, not much at all. Once again, that's just lining up the top end of the tuner capacitor with the oscillator capacitor. Alright, there's one more thing to do according to that little sheet. Come back to 93. This is the antenna trimmer, so I need to connect the input to the antenna. The generator is now connected to the FM antenna input, so we can adjust this one. I've wound the slug out a bit. It was just under flush when I got it, so I'll wind it out and then approach it, and look, it's going up. That seems to be about it. So if I wind it out a bit again, yeah, it's starting to drop off. So that's the peak right there, and that's pretty much exactly where it was. So that's it. That's the FM alignment done. The next thing to do is the RF for the AM. I'll set up to do that. I'll just check the alignment on the AM because I haven't touched anything on the AM. There's a little divot there in the top there, and that's where the pointer lines up, and that's it, and that's fully closed, the gang. I've got the Swartz on 600 kilohertz, so if I bring it up to here, the tone should be there, and it is. Alright, we'll go up to 15. I'll change this to 15. There it is. So that's, where is it? That's right on 15. Okay, so I'm not going to touch the AM, that'll be good enough. So I'll give it a quick test, we'll see how it all sounds. I'll just run through the stations very quickly. We're on medium wave. So there's 600 there, there's a station just after that. There it is.
Any male fight ever. I may be sexist, but I still...
Sounds fine. There should be one just short of this for 700. There he is. One about 800. It's about there. Now, it's not very loud. There's a problem with the volume control.
The late push.
There's the TAB or the horse racing, or the racing actually, it's not just horses. Should be another one here. Yeah, good. Now that's the hard to get station, so that's picking that up well. We'll try FM. I've wound it right down the end there. I had to put an antenna on. So this will be loud. Yeah, that station's only, I don't know, 10 kilometres away, so we get that, no problem.
And music that matters. It's lined up and ready to fill your ears with joy.
Behind Adelaide and a convincing victory in Brisbane.
I can buy myself flowers. The scars without any blame.
Yeah, that's great. There's some more up this end, of course, But that's really good, and it's picking up over the 100 there. The local station's 100.3. It's picking that up. It's stopping short of Triple M, which I think is about 104, so it can't quite get that one. I could stretch it out if I wanted to, but it's not going to live in this area, so there's no much point. I'm going to have to look at this volume control for the AM. It is very, very scratchy. It's another day, and this morning I'm going to address the crackling that's in the AM when you turn the volume up and down. I've had a look at the circuit, and these two pots here are in series, and you might be able to see there's a little link there that goes on the terminal that normally would go to ground, and it goes to the center wiper on this pot here. So why does it work in FM, yet you put it in AM and it's all crackly? So I can't imagine it's the actual pots. I thought about this overnight while I was supposed to be asleep. There's something else going on. I don't know what this is. It has 3 wires coming out of here. I'll follow those, see where they go. I followed that wire and it goes up here, around here, and comes out over here. The green wire is going to one of the IF transformers, and the yellow is going to one of the IF transformers. And the brown one, I think that's a ground point. I'll get the schematic and see what I can work out. Alright, let's have a look at the schematic. That's FM, that bit there. This one's the AM transformer. So its signal comes out here and it sits at that point there. The FM comes down here, it sits at this point here. When you engage FM, it connects that to that. AM connects that to that. So we come down here, through here, and I think that's for phono input. So we go across there and we come to one of the potentiometers, and that's that one there. The wiper, looks like the wiper comes off there and goes to the end of this potentiometer, and then the signal goes off to the grid of the preamp valve. So both signals are going through those two, so there's no way they're at fault. So that leaves the third one, and I can't find any other potentiometers. There's one here and one here, that's bass and treble. I have searched this whole schematic, I cannot find another potentiometer. What I did find though was these 2 points here have a link across there, and they go off to another inductor. And actually, in fact, that other inductor is in the other little transformer container. Oh, wow, I don't know. I'm not sure what that says. I can barely read it. I'll get my phone. Now, I can barely make out the letters, but it says closed wide. Closed wide. So that's actually a switch. Why don't they put a... So that's actually a switch. It goes from here to here or here to here. So if you close it, that's wide. I wonder if the volume control... Oh, well, that might be a switch on the back. Right. So this is the volume knob. It must be a switch. It is too. So that must broaden the tuning when you're in AM. So that means that if you're trying to tune a station here and it's weak, you can broaden the width of the station frequency so you can pick it up and tune it in. That's what that is. So that means that's a switch. Okay, I'll just turn the radio on. Right, it's got AM on and the news is running, so we can... And if I push that... Oh, it's gone. Oh.
Minister Claire O'Neill has told 7 banks should consider on
yeah, so if I wobble that,
got people around our country who are skipping meals.
It's got to be the switch. Hang on, I can prove that. There's the green and the yellow wires, and I think if I put a jumper on there, that'll be the same as the switch being shut. Right, if I turn it up now,
Text 0457 736 736 and make sure you are following our
it's perfect.
Twitter profile at Captain's.
So that switch is dirty. How do I clean that? I don't know how you get in there. This is all sealed. There's a gasket there. There is a hole where the switch goes out. If I push that, that'll come through. Yeah, look. So it must be, I'm not sure what sort of switch it'll be. A little diaphragm type switch. I'll see if I can get a bit of service hole in there or something and just work it through. I've got some deoxide. I'll use that. I don't know how, if this is going to go in to where it needs to be. And I'll just cycle it to see if it can work its way in there. I removed that jumper clip and I've put the meter across there. I've sprayed it again and I'm going to do it a little bit more again. I've been moving it up and down to try and get it to work into the mechanical part of the switch or the contacts, and I think that's pretty good. I can wobble that now. I've got 0, and if I push it in, I've got 0 there as well. So I think it is getting in there. I'll let it soak for a while. I'll put the radio on a bit later on and we'll see if it's fixed it. Alright, I did try it out and it's fixed. The volume is very smooth now. There's no crackle at all. But when I push it into what is normal, there's no volume at all. You have to turn it right up to even hear it. It's then occurred to me that I aligned it while it was in the wideband mode. Now, of course, it should have been aligned in the normal. Yeah, see, it's getting louder. Okay. Alright. So I'm going to have to do the alignment again. I'll do that and the back ones while it's in the pushed in mode, which is the normal mode. I'm not going to show it. I'll come back when it's all done. We'll try it out. Alright, I've finished realigning the AM again. And I've got this pushed in and it's working beautifully.
Possibly the number that you really need right now, however, is not the text number. But
yeah, so no scratching. The spray finally got into the switch and it's working properly.
In her schedule.
Yeah, nice. Now, if I pull it out, I can still hear the radio. So I had aligned it in the out position. When you pushed it in, the IF wasn't getting through. So now it's equal. So in or out,
older.
The volume doesn't change. Yeah, fantastic. I'm interested to see how much effect the wideband has. So I'll turn it up. I'll put it in wideband actually. That'd be better.
But in so many cases, it's just so.
I'll just tune it so it's just starting to lose the signal. If I push this in, it should lose it completely. Yeah, it's gone. So I'd have to retune it. Okay, so it does work.
I think it absolutely is worth it, putting a moisturiser.
Now, just before I wrap this radio up, I've got an issue down here as well. This is the bass control and the indicator's out of whack. So if you wind it all the way, it actually disappears. So in that position there, that should be down the bottom here and not visible. Here's the bottom. It's just using a string to rotate a little drum. Yeah, okay. It needs to pull that string a bit more, doesn't it? I was thinking I'll just turn the knob around a bit, but no, it is attached to the knob. Okay, so I can just rotate the knob a bit. Now you can see it there. It's got a little tang jammed in with the nut and screw that's holding it on the shaft. So I should be able to just rotate the knob and pull it tighter. So firstly, I'll undo the screw just a tiny bit. The screw is reasonably tight, so I will bottom the potentiometer out. I shall keep turning this until the brown line on the top just disappears like that, and then do the screw up. Perfect, absolutely perfect. I'm going to call this video done today. I was going to show the cabinet being worked on today, but it's taken so long to get to this point, it's going to run too long. So I'll look at it next week. I'll make another video. I had never envisaged having issues with IF cans that were jammed up, FM that tuned and detuned itself, a faulty switch that caused the AM to crackle. It's all stuff that you put away and you can approach it next time. But for this week, I'm going to call it quits. I hope you enjoyed watching this and picked up some of the points that I learned as I went along. Maybe won't make the same mistakes. So if you did enjoy it, I hope you can come back next week and watch part 3 of my Loewe Meteor radio adventure.